to the reader. We're looking at unit number 5, and we're talking about polemics in Aggadah. The idea is that Aggadah is used, like we said, to deliver a message. It's an agenda. But we want to look at the techniques of the rabbis, what they used, how they used it. But let's go first, actually in order. Let's go to page 22, the last paragraph. And this is a Midrash of one of the most favorite stories of the Torah, the story of Korah. It's a favorite story of all rabbis because they could always make it relevant.
To everything.
To everything. It works. Someone is fighting in the shul, you have an election, you just have to be careful not to be too political, but it always works. So let's read the Midrash. Or maybe before we do that, in general, do you remember what was the argument of Korah against Moshe? What was his claim when he confronted Moshe? You have too much power.
We're all holy.
Yeah.
And we're all holy, right? We're all holy. We do not need a leader, right? Which, by the way, was the reason that the Moshe offered the test that he offered. He says, "Okay, let's see. Bring your pans, bring your incense, and present it to God, and God will choose the holy man." Why did he do that? Because he said, "Okay, if you really want equality and you think we don't need a leader, your answer should be, we don't need a leader. We're all equals." But the moment they said, "Oh yeah, we're coming tomorrow. We want to see who's elected," he knew that they were hypocrites and they were just using this argument in order to
promote their own power,
to dethrone him and to usurp power. But in any case, so the argument, do we know any details of the argument? That you just take too much power, right? So you as a rabbi, as someone who has to write the drasha, and you want to talk about Korah, would you want to embellish his story and give him a little more, what kind of arguments would you put in Korah's mouth? Let's say in contemporary context, right? In assuming that if there is a Korah in your congregation, or in your, in the general Jewish community, he'll be attacking you. Because you're the leader, you're Moshe. So what kind of arguments would you provide for that Korah? You're writing both sides. The Torah wrote just very general, you have too much power, right? And now you come to parse it and to present it to people. So what was Korah's argument? Because you're trying to embellish the story, and you want them to get interested and entertained. So what kind of a speech would you write for your opponent?
More interested in your own status than our welfare. We're looking at it as from the people complaining about their leader, right?
Right. So you will write for your opponent a
criticism
of yourself.
Yeah.
And you will present it to your people? Because you're the rabbi.
Okay.
You're going now. You're talking to your supporters,
okay,
right? And you're telling them the story of your opponent. Your opponent is not present. You're telling his story to your people. So
he's a very unhappy person.
He's a very unhappy. Okay. So are you going to write for him a speech that will present him in a negative light?
It's very dangerous.
Well, I mean, if that's the opponent, then
yes,
that would be the approach. You want to set them.
Yeah, but if he's going to come after you,
he's not going. He is coming after me already. He's making a lot of trouble.
Okay.
Right? He's making a lot of trouble.
I would never make this a public sermon.
You wouldn't. Okay. Oh, so first you wouldn't make it a public sermon. Like if I want to talk about Korah, you want to say.
In other words, I would talk about Korah and Moshe.
But you wouldn't say what Korah.
People draw an analogy, but I would never say a name or even allude to a contemporary situation inside a synagogue, a political situation. That's
right.
Not from the bima.
Right, but just what I'm saying is I could take it to a higher level is Moshe represents Judaism. Right? He's the prophet, he's the one who spoke to God. So Korah is the opponent of all Judaism, in a way. Because when he comes and confronts Moshe and he says, you take too much power, who gave that power to Moshe?
God.
God. and people were present at the moment of prophecy, right? The gates were open, and they were witnesses to that Ma'amad Har Sinai when Moshe is prophesying. So he's actually defying God. So when you're a rabbi in any generation, and we're talking about the opponent, it's not one of your congregants who's not happy about his position on the board or the seat that he received or the aliyah that he received. It's like we're talking about someone who is undermining the foundations of Judaism. So if you present him in your, this is the way Korah is perceived in our literature, right?
No, I get it, but I don't know. I find it's like a liberal, almost rabbi that it's like an incredibly difficult thing to say about someone else. That they are undermining the tenets.
I understand.
How could I say that as like a woman rabbi from the Bima?
I understand, but you understand that it is. We're talking about dogmatic Judaism.
I get it.
Right? There are certain rules, certain things that you have to accept.
But I'm never going to deal with people who are in
okay. But let's say theoretically, if you had to deal with it,
okay,
you would present this Korah as someone who has valid or invalid arguments. Invalid arguments. Okay, so what would you say if I show you that the rabbis wrote a speech for Korah, and not only they wrote a speech for him, a very detailed speech of exactly what he said, it's actually very convincing. So let's read that speech. It's on page 22 at the bottom, and anyone wants to read the Hebrew? It's a long speech. We'll wait. Yeah, not that bad. Okay. Litzanut, yeah.
Korah gathered the congregation. He started to speak satirically. That's the litzanut.
Or mockery, yeah.
Amar. Almana achat yesh
Shchunati.
Ba'ama sheni narot yitomot v'haya la sadeh achat. He said there was one widow in my neighborhood with two young orphan girls.
She had my typo, one field.
Yeah.
I fixed it here, but no.
So one widow. They're orphaned because their father died?
Yeah.
But the mother's alive.
Yeah.
Yeah, the only person who was important was the father, though, because he could protect them.
No, but a widow in Hebrew is called a widow of either parent, not both.
An orphan.
An orphan is of either parent.
Is that true?
Yes.
I've only seen... Okay.
In Hebrew, yeah.
Okay. I mean, not in modern Hebrew or in biblical?
In modern Hebrew also, yeah.
Okay. That's not the way to
Achat
learn.
lecharush.
No, bata.
Bata.
It's like rabbinical Hebrew. Ba'a. It's ba'a. So she was about to.
Lecharush. Amar la Moshe. Lo techarush bashor. V'chomer yachtor.
Yahdav. So.
She was about to plow, but Moses told her she cannot plow with a donkey and an ox.
It's a prohibition, right? You can't harness two different animals to the plow. Bat lizora.
Bat lizora, amar la sarcha, lo tizroa
Kilayim.
Right. She was about to sow. He said you are not allowed to mix different seeds. So this is the widow.
Yes.
Correct.
Mm-hmm.
Trying to plow with two different species, trying to sow two different seeds. This is what's going on here. Ata l'kitzor v'la'asot arima amar la lakat hacha u'pia. She was harvesting and gathering the stalks. He told her that she must leave a corner of the field, fallen stalks, and forgotten sheaves. So there's a lot of nagging. going
Oh,
Catch a break.
we feel that,
on.
right?
Right? I'm getting that feeling. Like,
Right? Moshe is
Can I-
nagging her?
like, I don't know why she just didn't say, here, you do it.
Okay. So let's see. Lily, you want to continue with the
Sure.
2 paragraphs, and then we'll move on?
Bata la'asot goren, amar la tani li teruma uma'aser rishon uma'aser sheni. As she put the grains in the granary, he reminded her that she should give truma as well as first and second tithes. Hatzdika aleha et hadin v'natna lo. She accepted the verdict and gave him.
So it's already a verdict. It's she feels judged or nagged. Okay.
Ma'asta
Aniya.
What did the poor woman do? Machara et pasadeh v'kanta shtei kvasot k'dei lilbosh magzotehen v'lihanot mepirutehen. She sold the field and bought 2 sheep, so she could enjoy their wool and fruits.
Fruits is the
Fruits of the wool.
yes, fruits of the
What?
womb. The
Like the fruits of her labor, the fruits
Yes.
of their labor, the fruits of the
Profit,
wool
right.
and the
mhm.
milk or whatever.
It's descendants also. It's babies. It's perot also.
כיוון שילדו בא אהרון ואמר לה, תני לי את הבכורות. As they gave birth, Aaron came over. He said, you must give me the firstborn. הצדיקה עליה את הדין ונתנה לו את חולדות. She accepted the verdict and gave him the land.
Okay.
Want me to keep going or not?
Yeah. Anyone else want to read this paragraph?
Shall I try?
Yeah. הגיע הזמן.
הגיע הזמן,
גזיזה.
גזיזה וגזיזה, אהרון, אותן, בא אהרון ואמר לה,
תני לי.
לי ראשית
הגז.
agez. When she was shearing them, Aaron came and said that she must give him a portion of the wool. Amra, in the in bikoach la'amod לאיש הזה הריני
Mhm. שוחטתן. It's a compound word. שוחטת אותן. שוחטתן.
Okay.
Yeah.
Ochleitem.
Mhm.
She broke down and said, I cannot take this man anymore. I will slaughter and eat them.
So, like Josh, what you said before, she would say, enough already?
Being bullied.
Right, she's being bullied, right? Okay, כיוון ששחטתן, בא אהרון ואמר לה, תני לי הזרוע והלחיים והקיבה. She slaughtered them, and Aaron came and said that she must give him 1 leg, the cheek, and the intestines. אמרה, אחר ששחטתי אותם לא ניצלתי מידך? Even after slaughtering them, I'm not saved. הרי הם חרם עליי, I will dedicate them all to God. אמר לה, אם חרם הן, כולן שלי. He said, if this is the case, they are all mine. ונטלן והלך לו, והניחה בוכה עם 2 בנותיה. He took them and left her crying with her 2 daughters. אריך כדן, הביזתה עלובתה. כולהן עושין ותולין בהקדוש ברוך הוא. Is this a way to behave? The poor woman. They all act in that manner and say it is in God's name.
Yikes.
Okay.
It's pretty convincing.
Right. So if you had to vote now, you just finished reading, who do you vote for?
The woman.
The woman, and who represents the woman? Korah, right?
Yikes. Yeah.
Right. Did you ever have quips like that with Judaism?
Mm-hmm.
People are, it's managing all my life, how I get up, where I walk, what I eat, what I do, right? So this is a very convincing argument. If you try to present Korah as the enemy of the nation or the enemy of religion, because at the end of the day, don't forget, Korah is punished. He's swallowed by the earth. He's gone. So this is not what we want. So Korah seems to be the defender of justice and of the poor and of the needy, and here is being presented such a convincing view. Could it be subterfuge? Could it be someone that really is against the rabbis or against Judaism that wrote that speech, and somehow it made its way into the official text? Could be.
I think it's just people that are hypocritical.
Who is hypocritical? Korah?
I think it's just giving an example, right? Like we talked about yesterday.
Yeah.
Don't say that you're so pious and mighty and then act in a different way than what you say.
Right.
Don't say like, oh, thank God. Like, oh, God's so great. And then I'm like...
So yeah, that I accept. So Korah Korah pretends to defend the poor, but really doesn't care. He says, I want to dethrone Moshe because Moshe is taking advantage of the poor, but when he will be in power, he will take advantage of the poor. Right? But still, you don't write for him such a convincing presentation. This is really good. This is like for the debate team.
But in the text, Korah doesn't seem that he necessarily wants Moshe and Hiram's power. He wants it to be more democratic.
Right. That's what he
We
says.
should not lord it over. We're all holy. We're all,
Right.
And then it's emphatic. We're all holy, all of us.
Right.
It's twice.
Right. But still, when Korah is offered the chance to be the leader, he takes it right away. Take pens, and we'll see. Maybe Hashem will choose you.
So where this might go then is, let me tell you a story of how bad these guys are. And by the way, I want to be just like that.
Right. Okay. So yeah, we show that Korah is not good, but there are people like him. Are there people like Korah at the time of the author? Is it possible that maybe he's referring to other people? Because we said that just like with Brit Milah, there is a problem with people not wanting to do circumcision, and so maybe.
Well, this is the Gaonim period.
No, this is Midrash, yes, but it goes to. Different versions of it appear in different places. So it could be. It could have come from a later period, but I think by analysis of Midrash, we'll see what period it really belongs to. There's another interesting Midrash on what Korah did, also by Midbar Rabbah, which is a later Midrash, but also has...
So, I have a question.
Yes.
How did you know or find a Midrash about Korah in Tehillim? How would you know because I would think it would be in...
Yeah, in this particular case,
I bet this isn't the only example.
No, remember that we spoke about the technique of the rabbi to connect the midrash to remote psukim and makes like
that's
surprise.
that's not
right.
a problem. But
So
how did you find it?
Right. Oh, how did I find it? No, I use my database. I could have found a different version, but I know why it's there because the last pasuk of the first chapter of Tehillim is Ashrei Ha'ish Asher Lo Halach. Sorry, the first is Ashrei Asher Lo Halach B'derech Hataim U'moshav V'atzat Hashem La'od U'moshav Nitzim Lo Yashav. He did not dwell with the clowns or those who are engaged in mockery. So they say, who is a mocker? Who is a clown? Korah. So that's the connection. But the story is really, the thing is, in this particular case, I didn't really worry about what is exactly the source from all the different sources of Midrash, because once I identified the thread that connects them all, I could tell which period they belong to. So, could be that what we have is the written reincarnation of an oral tradition, but I could tell that the original came from a much earlier period. And so we'll look one second at page 24. There's a lot of material about Korah. Everybody just loved his story, and that has to do with the dedication of the Levites in Parashat Be'alotcha. So that's a previous parasha. God tells Moshe, you have to dedicate, you have to consecrate the Levites. How are you going to consecrate them? They have to shave their body completely, and you have to lift them in the air. So the Midrash says the following: שאמר הקדוש ברוך הוא למשה, קח את הלוויים והעבירו תער על כל בשרם, מיד עשה כן לקורח. When God told Moshe to take the Levites and shave their body, he did so to Korah. Of course, he did it to everyone, or they did it to themselves, but the Midrash highlights Moshe versus Korah. התחיל לחזור על כל ישראל, ולא היו מכירים אותו. לחזור is not from to return, but rather the word hazar in Aramaic means to go in circles, right? That's why to court in Hebrew, a boyfriend who's courting his girlfriend is called mehazer.
Keeps coming around.
אמרו לו, מי עשה לך כך? I mean, he shows himself to people, I don't know to what extent, but they say, who did this to you? אמר להם, משה עשה בי. Moshe did this to me. ולא עוד, אלא נטלני בידיי ורגליי. He lifted me by my arms and legs, והיו מניפים אותי, and they would lift me in the air, ואומר לי, הרי אתה טהור, now you're pure. Not only that, והביא את אהרון אחיו וקישתו כחלה, והושיבו באוהל מועד. He brought his brother Aaron and dressed him like a bride and made him sit at the tent of the meeting. מיד התחילו שונאי משה להתגרות בו את ישראל. The adversaries of Moshe started inciting the Israelite against him. ואמרו, משה מלך, ואהרון אחיו כהן גדול, ובניו סגני כהונה. תרומה לכהן, מעשר לכהן, 24 מתנות לכהן. They said Moshe is king, his brother Aaron is high priest, and his sons are deputy priests. Truma goes to the Kohen, 24 gifts go to the Kohen, tithes go to the Kohen. Okay, here's another. So this Kohen seems not only to be
This is somebody who doesn't like Korah very much, obviously. Or not Korah, I meant
Moshe.
Moses.
Yeah. This guy is brilliant. He is a true, he should have helped some of our politicians with their campaign. He really knows how to present his case. I don't say, but he uses things that happened to him with Moshe. He goes from tent, he works the room, he works the crowd, he goes to people, he talks to them. Look what he did to me.
So you sort of like it. You think what happened to me was bad.
Yes, right. And they what he's saying is this is paganism. What are they doing? What are all these strange rituals? I have to be shaved. They have to lift me in the air. All these elaborate clothes. We want a simple religion. We don't want that. And if you say it in your synagogue in the name of Korah, people say, wait. We're with Korah. We're not with Moshe. So why would you make a sermon like that?
Because you're going to pull out the carpet from underneath them at that.
Right. So this is the trick is to
set up,
build him up, and bring him down. The higher
they rise, the harder they fall.
Exactly. So you want to bring Korah up. You want to bring him down. That is the what we have here. But what I want to say now, the flaws in the story.
The expression is you give them just enough rope to hang themselves with.
Okay. So.
That's the first time I've heard that.
Really? I like expression.
I think I heard that. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
So. Let's look now. Remember that we spoke about the oral versus the written version of the Midrash, where in the oral presentation, you could explain things or allude to things that maybe are not going to go into writing. So first, let's look at the story. Let's examine again the story of Korah. This brilliant display of rhetoric and attacking the halachot, the laws as God gave them to Moshe, and see if it really works. So he gathered. We're going back to page 22. So there was a widow in his neighborhood. Which neighborhood? Where?
Oh.
Where did Korah live next to this widow? There are two options: Egypt or the desert, right? But in Egypt, Moshe and Aaron were still not in power, and didn't come to tell people what to do and what not to do. So it's the desert, right? Okay, so it's in the desert. And she had a field.
That doesn't make any
What?
sense.
She had a field.
They were wanderers.
They were wanderers. They didn't have fields. Okay, so lie number
A
one.
very small field.
A very small field. It's a portable field.
There you go.
It's on the back of the donkey. Yeah.
So this is during like the temple period, and they're really complaining about the priests.
It could be, yes. But the thing is, yeah, we'll see that. But we'll see that the rabbis worked into the speech very brilliantly. Little hints that tell people this is not true. It doesn't work. Those are just people who want to complain. Now, Josh, when he read it, he translated it as, after the translation, you read, she wanted to plow with an ox and a donkey, and Moshe came and said, you can't do that. Why did you assume that she wanted to do it with an ox and a donkey? The story doesn't say that. She was about to plow. And the complaint of people is that some people do complain about the Torah being, Torah micromanages our lives. And the answer to that would be, you don't have to use an ox and a donkey. Right? One animal is enough. And most people really had one animal. They didn't have two. And many of them didn't have one. They would pull the plow themselves. It was basically, they were harnessed with their back and plow. So it's not the end of the world as, you can't do anything. But next, Bat Lizroa Amar Lach Sadecha Lo Tizra Kilayim. Now she's about to sow, and he said you can mix different seeds. So
what?
So what exactly? So what do you want to do? You have, according to the biblical law, which we're talking about here, the kilayim is only if you mix grapeseed, wheat, and barley in the same spot.
Who would do that? Like you go to the store and you buy your barley and you buy your
right. You wouldn't do that, right? No, you don't buy barley. You grow barley, but you don't have to grow it in the same. And you can grow it in the same place, the vineyard, because it has different needs. But if you do need, and if you're so tired and you need barley and wheat and grapes, you could just blend them, sow them in rows. In rows, you don't have to mix them. Again, it's not the end of the world when it comes to controlling our life. So again, it's a flawed argument. It's the rabbi who delivered that speech was able on one hand to say Korah comes and complains about A, B, C, D, but you know what? Those are not real complaints. Something else is here. Batla asot goren. Now she creates the heap. She gathers the grains. He says, you have to give me truma. Truma goes to the kohen. How much of it? How much is truma?
One, like a
one out of 60 to 1 out of 40. I mean, this is the range, but those are recommended or suggested donations. The real amount is 1 grain of wheat. Hita hat poteret et kol hakri. You need to give truma. You gave 1 grain. It's just symbolic. So he really didn't ask for so much. Then he asked for maaser rishon, the first tithe, which is 10%, and that it goes to the Levi. And that's where you could really complain, or why you're taking so much. But that is part of the social system of the Torah.
They have no land.
They have no land.
And they have no beasts of their own.
Right. But then maaser sheni, what is maaser sheni? Who receives it? The owner. It goes to the owner of the field. The only difference between regular grains and maaser sheni is that the maaser sheni you have to take with you to Jerusalem and consume it there. So it's really yours. Why are you complaining if it's yours? You're not giving anything. But there's something else. The Talmud says, the Mishnah says actually, that the Kohen is not allowed to demand the 10%. The owner of the field, any maaser, any trumot or maaserot, the Kohen cannot claim them. If you decide to give it to him, you could do it.
They're not tax collectors. They don't go knocking.
They're not tax collectors, right? Why are they not allowed to do that? Because they're not allowed to degrade the honor, the respect of the kehuna. And at a certain point, the Kohanim wanted to bypass that prohibition of of asking for truma. So let's say Josh has a field, and I'll come over, and let's say I'm a Kohen. I say, "Could you give me your 10%?" And he says, "Sorry, I'll give it to whomever I want." Right? So there was what? How are your fields doing in Tabasco?
Not well. Drought.
Okay, I'll pray for you next time I'm in the temple. The good Lord will send you rains
But
of
don't worry, the
blessing.
wineries are doing all right.
Okay.
They get all the water.
Okay, so we had this phenomenon on Kohen HaMesayer Beveit HaGranot. Kohen who was offering a helping hand at the threshing grounds and where they collect the wheat, right? There were Kohanim like that. They were so nice. They were volunteers. They would go around the fields. "Oh, Josh, you spoke about the vineyards, right, and the fields, and you don't have enough. I happen to have a free day. I can come and help you, right?" So at the end of the day, the Kohen says, "Okay, I'm going home," and you say, "Bye. Okay, have a great day. I'm going home after helping you the whole day. Don't you want to say something?" So no, it's good. You can go home. But what if he says, what if you decide to be nice and give it to him? The halakha will say you cannot do that. Meaning not only that the Kohen cannot claim it, even if he did something for the owner is not allowed to give it to him. So there's no way that this could have happened in reality. In other words, the Kohen HaMesayer Beveit HaGranot, even if you did something that you deserve payment for, you're not going to get it. So definitely if Aaron comes and says, "Give me this" or "Give me that," this doesn't work. So one by one, all these arguments are falling apart.
Sensical. Okay.
Right. So next, okay, let's go next.
I have a question though. You said, excuse me.
Yeah.
You said that it's not like this idea of like truma and then the first and second ties are like no biggie.
No, that's not biggie. The only thing that
Not
is
a big
taken
deal.
from her is the 10%, which seems like a lot.
Right.
But like she mentioned that they didn't have any fields of their own, and the Kohanim were supposed to serve the people. Back in the day, whatever religious service you needed, you would get it from the Kohen or from the Levi.
Civil servants.
They were civil servant, right?
Gotta have taxes.
Yes, and in a way, by the way, and this is besides the point. In general, when you look at the system of the Torah, just like in the tax system, we have deductible, which encourage people to give tzedakah, which is a great idea in the American system. The idea of giving 10% of your crops to the Levi or to the poor was actually an amazing economic engine of growth, because the more you give, the happier you are, and you want to give more. How are you going to give more? By producing more. Without giving, you can become complacent at a certain point. You say, "I have enough. I don't need more." There's a book called Give and Take by a professor of, actually he's a psychologist, which is teaching now at Wharton School of Business. His name is Adam Grant, and I highly recommend this book. I like the book for several reasons, but one of them is that I read this is the basis of the whole social system of the Torah.
What's the name of the book?
Give and take.
Adam Grant.
So it's easy to remember.
Adam.
Adam HaRishon gives you a grant. So it's about really how giving is built into the fabric of society. So this is the reason behind it. It's not a biggie, but a rabbi could always explain that there's something good there. But in general, he's not taking that much from her. Then she sells the field and she buys 2 sheep, and then he claims the wool. Right? Problem is, according to halakha, you have to own at least 5 sheep in order for you to give wool to the kohen. You give something called reshita ger, like a little spool of wool, but only if you have so many, at least 5 sheep. So in this case, this is a clear example of it doesn't work. And then the rest is okay. They're pushing it. They're doing more and more and more. So already in that at that level of asking why are they building such a convincing case for Korah to present, it's not that convincing. But still, we had to go into it and unearth all these and really dig into those issues to find that it's not convincing. So why even do it in the first place? Because when we read it without my commentary, we were all, wow, this is really bad. This Moshe and that Aaron are really bad.
Did the original audience know the halakha? Would they have been
We
able
assume
to-
that either they knew. First of all, they were farmers, so they had to know that. It wasn't their, code book.
So they wouldn't have necessarily fallen for the argument that
Right.
we did.
Yes.
They would have said, "Oh."
They could have,
clearly
right? And
not
plus,
so.
we assume that the rabbis also, the darshan also use body language or other hints to tell them that's not true. But the second thing,
But isn't the whole point that you want people to follow along? Isn't the point?
of course, I want them to follow
that
along.
Not follow along. Like you want them to be fooled for a second. Like you have to deliver it in a way that they get
Yeah.
incendiary.
Okay, so I
So
don't know
it's
exactly
like-
how he delivered it. So maybe when he delivered it, he first did what I did,
Right.
and then he did what I did, and
And everyone's like, "Oh yeah, wait a second, you need 5." Because if you're yelling at someone and
Yes.
and making people you're like,
yeah.
"Oh,
Our math
why didn't
teacher
I-"
did it to us once when we were like, I know what is called here calculus or like something really up there, 3-dimensional physics, 2-dimensional math, and he's writing this long equation on the board, and he asks us at every step of the process, is this correct? Yes. Is this correct? And I loved it. I enjoyed it. I eventually left this field, but there were 3 other kids who were really brilliant in math, and they also approved of every step. And then he finishes the equation. Is this right? And we said yes. And he exploded. He yelled at us. He says, "I'm feeding you trash, and you eat it, and you say lomp. Zetaim tavi od." It's like his name was Dr. Lomp. He says, "You say it's tasty. Feed us more." He says, "Don't you see?" And then he shows us the what he wanted to show us. He could fall so easily for something like that. It's hiding there. Be careful. You're going to be scientists. You're going to be researchers. If you don't double check everything you do, you're going to lose your Mars rover. The vehicle that went to Mars
Yeah.
and got lost because 2 teams of scientists worked. One used centimeters, the other one inches. So yeah, it's only $140 million, not a biggie. So, but the same way is like the darshan could do that, could give you a whole brilliant exposition of halakha and text and Torah, and then it says, "Wow, this is amazing." No, it's wrong. So maybe also it tells people, you complain about Judaism, you misunderstand Judaism, right? That's also a good message that the rabbis could have delivered.
You're not paying attention.
What?
You're just allowing yourself to be upset.
Exactly.
You're not really paying attention.
Right. You're kvetching for. So those are the things that really don't affect you. Don't mix 2 breeds. Don't mix 2 animals. All these things can be done. Give 10%. You're not really suffering from it. What are you giving to the Kohen? The cheek, the intestines. You really were going to eat that. So the leg, yeah, it's a. So just take it in a balanced way. But the second story here is more bothersome because it's really what the Torah told Moshe to do: to shave the Levites and to raise them up in the air and to dress him up in a really elaborate garment. So, just one comment on the concept of lehanif, tenufa. The Torah speaks about the word tenufa, which is
Waving the grain.
what?
Waving the grain.
The tenufa is mentioned like as raising or lifting. But the problem is with the Levites, there were like 22,000 of them. And when God tells Aaron, take the Levites and lift them up, how is he going to do that?
All at the same time?
All at the same time, right? So how do you lift up all the Levites at the same time? Because he could not have done them one after the other. That would have taken
3
for
years.
right. If you want to do it in one day, it's about 1,000 an hour, right? So
Can you hire help?
right. So we have to assume that the tenufa is not physical, but rather metaphorical. It's consecration. dedication, you are doing it simultaneously by saying, you are now all dedicated, so you are uplifted from your previous status to your new status as servant of God. It must be that.
Just stand up. Like they were
Just
sitting
stand
down
up,
and
exactly.
stand up.
Right. So they were not raised up in the air. So this part at least we know is not there. The shaving, yes, but it was not only done to the Levites. There's another occasion where this is done.
Nazarites?
The Nazarites and the leper, right. When the Nazarites finish his period of Nazirut and comes back to normal life, and when the leper emerges from his period of impurity and again reintegrates into society, he has to shave clean. So it's symbolic. The symbolism is you're peeling off your old skin and now you're a new person. So it was a one-time event. Why would people complain about that? And then again, it's a strange argument that Aaron is dressed in fancy clothes. In all religions, definitely at the time, the servants of the temple had elaborate garments, right? Even today, I think in most places. I always take off my jacket in the synagogue, but that's the only thing that I can't do more than that. So, but still, you're supposed to wear. Some places. Any of you wear robes? You have robes? Okay. The high holidays, you do?
I wear a kittle on my
You do? Okay. I don't. I feel like I'm suffocated out of it. I'd rather. I would tell you it is enough. It's hot enough, but it's okay. But I mean, there shouldn't be really an argument against. No jacket. No. But someone. Oh, you don't wear it. Okay.
Not under the
Tie I wear, but because I don't wear it. But someone, one Yom Kippur, when I had a visitor.
Nobody can see it.
I had one Yom Kippur when I had a visitor from New York, like a more Orthodox person, and
wearing so much clothes.
and he came to me. He looked modern Orthodox, and he says, "Rabbi, you don't have a rabbinical appearance because I don't wear a jacket." So in my next speech, I said, there's a rumor that I don't own a jacket. And therefore I'm not rabbinical enough. So here's my jacket, and I showed it to everyone. I said, if you have any questions in halakha, you could ask the jacket. After the because if this is what makes you the rabbi, then there you go.
You're in trouble.
Anyway,
Also Israeli, so there's that crossover too, right?
yeah, I know I'm an Israeli. Yeah, it took me time to put on a tie in the case.
That's what you should have said. I'm wearing a tie.
I'm wearing-
dude.
yeah.
Like, hey, Rabbi,
I'm
what do you
overdressed,
want
right?
from me?
Exactly. Anyway,
This is a tuxedo for me.
Yeah.
so these two midrashim really bothered me. This is also a midrash that I did research on. So I was looking into that, and all these questions that we have now bother me. Like, why, even if you want to bring down Korah, why do you have to tailor such a case? What is going on here? What is the hidden agenda of the rabbis? And I started looking into, like you said, the priests, the contemporaries of the rabbis, because up until the year 70 of the Common Era, there was 67 to 69 or 70, there was still a temple. There were still sacrifices. And the rabbis of the Midrash were familiar with this reality. And we know that there were tensions between the rabbis and the priests. We know there was a tension between early Christianity and the priests, right? Jesus comes to the temple on the 11th of Nisan, and he turns over the tables of the money changers, and he calls them corrupt people who turn the temple into a business area, whatever it is. So we know that something happened there. So I looked at sources, and I found the following. The bottom source on page 24, we read this: Maaseh be'isha achat shehevi'a komets shel solet, והיה הכהן מבזה עליה ואומר, ראו מה הן מקריבות, מה בזה לאכול, מה בזה להקריב. So this woman brought some fine flour as an offering to the Kohen, and the Kohen shamed her. And he said, "What? Look what she brought to the temple. That's nothing. What can I eat from it? What can I sacrifice from it? That's not enough for me." Now,
In other words, bring the meat.
bring the meat, right? Bring me the meat. Don't bring me some flour, right? Why would the woman bring flour? Because the Torah says that's what she has. The Torah says, if you can afford it, bring a lamb. If you can't afford it, turtle doves. If you can't afford it, or if you're vegetarian, then bring fine flour, right? The interesting wordplay says, "Vaya kohen, a kohen mevazeh aleh." You know what the word bazui in Hebrew? The word buz is shame, disgrace.
Oh.
Kohen mevazeh. It's called Nahei Ayin Vav, the second letter of the Nahei Lamed Hey. The last letter of the verb is hey, so sometimes it disappears. So mevazeh is from buz. He disgraced her. He shamed her. And what does he say? Ma bazeh le'echol.
Oh, ma bazeh.
Bazeh. Even though bazeh means in this, but here's the nice wordplay, right? But this is, can you imagine this moment where she comes to the temple?
It's mortifying.
And it's mortifying. It's mortifying to be rebuked publicly in the temple, and for what? For being poor? So what does the Kohen show here? That is, with all the nice thing that we spoke about, the social system of the Torah, how it's supposed to encourage you to give, and the Kohen is the public servant, at the end of the day, he becomes this corrupt person who wants to feed himself with the fat of the temple. So that's one source that shows us there is some corruption in the temple. Now, look at the next source. It's a Mishnaic source from the Tosefta in Zevahim that deals with the korbanot, and it says this: "Barishona ayu machnisin orot kodashim lelishkat bet parva." Initially, they would have stored the hides of sacrifices in a special room. It's called the beta parva. In modern Hebrew, parva is fur, so it could be that's the. It sounds like a Persian word. So the hides of the sacrifices, the hide was something that was not burnt on the altar. It was one thing that was put aside. It always says all over that they had to skin the animal, and that is, if you think of a couple of, we don't know, dozens or maybe 100 sacrifices a day, whatever it was, that is a lot of money. The hides were used for everything. They used to make clothes, utensils, furniture from them. You don't waste anything. So now all these hides that accumulated at the end of the day, who's going to get them? היו מחלקים אותן בערבים לכל בית אב שבאותו היום. In the evening, they would split them evenly amongst all the Kohanim who served on that day's shift. והיו גדולי כהונה ba'im v'notlin otan bizroa. The greats of the priests. I translate like that because I wasn't sure how to convey the gedolei kehuna. It's a play on Kohen Gadol, but it's not Kohen Gadol. It's not the great priest. It's the gedolei kehuna, like the important people among the Kohanim, the machars, would come and take them by force. So this is what robbery in the temple. And they claim it's ours. We, the leaders of the Kohanim, we deserve it. They made a decree to split them on Fridays. So we're not giving them that one every day, because maybe there's not enough. We'll wait until Friday, and then we'll have all the Kohanim who serve the whole week, to have more people present. So the robbery is not so easy to carry out. And they would still come and take them by force. So what happened? The owner stood up, meaning took action, and dedicated them to heaven. So what does this remind us of? We'll read the story from Korah's story. Here we have the Kohen.
Oh, incense?
No, the Midrash, from the Midrash that we read.
They're abusing their power.
They're using their power. They come to just like Korah comes to the widow, not Korah, Aaron comes to the widow and says, give me this, give me that. And she says, I can't take it anymore. Let me dedicate it to heaven. Here we have a real case from Mishnaic period where the Kohanim come and take by force something that belongs to someone else, and they say, I don't want to give it to you. I'll dedicate it to the temple. So, one by one, we see that the rabbis are talking about a reality of their days. So what I want to show here is that this is really a polemic of the rabbis against the priests. Towards the end of the Second Temple, there was a clash between several classes. We know of the zealots, the people who wanted to fight till the last drop of blood. We know of the Essenes and the Baithusenes, all these sects that ended up going to the Judean desert. They broke away from the temple. We know of the Sadducees and the Pharisees. And here is the clash between the Pharisees, the rabbis, and it's not the Pharisees as we know as the meaning is in English. Because in Christianity, the word Pharisees became a disparaging word towards Rabbinic Judaism. Pharisees in our language are the leaders of Rabbinic Judaism, Perushim. And they look at the temple and they see the corrupt Kohanim. They're corrupt on several accounts. They, like we saw, they eschew the sacrifices of the poor people. So they really alienate the poor from the service of the temple. They only serve the wealthy people. They use the wealthy people in order to build their own fortune. They rob the other Kohanim. And as we'll see later, they're also heavily influenced by Greek culture. And the rabbis are not happy with that. So because they have instead of having spiritual leaders in the temple, they have corrupt, Hellenized businessmen.
Do you think this is true, then? You're agreeing with this?
No, that's my theory. That's what the rabbis are doing here. And what I'm showing is that all the arguments. So what the thing is that the rabbis use Korah as a mouthpiece to attack the Kohanim. It's a very complicated dance. Now, why would they do that?
It doesn't. It's kind of contradictory.
Right. Because they identify with Korah, right?
Right.
Right.
And he's supposed to be a bad guy.
Right. Why do they do it this way? Because they are talking about hypocrisy. They're telling people there is hypocrisy here. But they use Korah to attack the priests because it's safer for them. Because, as we'll see, the priests ran their own mafia. They had a mafia. You don't want to confront them publicly. That's the Pope and the Borgia family, not the Medici. The Borgia were popes, right? And they were also the mafia. So religious power and monetary power in the same place, very, very dangerous. So the rabbis are afraid to speak openly against the Kohanim. So what do? They deliver a sermon, and they tell the people, let me tell you what Korah says, right? And they go, Korah. We're really talking about the Kohanim. They maybe said in the beginning of their sermon, maybe there were other ways to deliver it, but in any case, people understood that the attack here is directed at the Kohanim. But the rabbis now here are using in the story that we read originally, they're creating the whole narrative. They take verses and they put them into a story and they present it to the people. So let's look at the next story, and you'll see how it builds up. They're all connected. This is from the Talmud Bavli, Tractate Nazir. the Talmud refers to the pasuk in the Torah that says that a man is not allowed to dress as a woman, and a woman is not allowed to dress as a man, cross-dressing. And part of cross-dressing was shaving one's armpits. המעביר בית השחי ובית הערווה לוקה. משום לא ילבש גבר שמלת אישה. One who shaves his armpits gets lashes. For transgressing, a man should not dress as a woman, because it was customary for women to do that. So, if a man does that, he's going to get lashes. Fine. I am trying to think if I heard of a case like that recently. Someone got lashes in a Jewish court. I don't think not. I'm joking. I just want to tease Shira a little bit. Yeah. Okay. So here's the case. Here was a real case. Hahudit hayev negida kamed Rabbi Amei. One man was sentenced to lashes by Rabbi Amei. Not for that transgression, for something else. He did something really bad that required punishment, and he's brought to the court, and now he's about to get his punishment. Iglai bet hashehi. As they stripped him to get lashes, they had to take off his shirt or his robe to give him lashes on his bare back. His armpit was exposed, and it showed that he does not shave there. So the rabbi said, Amarun Rabbi Ami, let him go. He is one of ours. He's one of our company. Do you understand the story?
He was falsely accused.
No. He was not accused for shaving his armpits. He was accused of something else.
Like murdering someone.
Not murder. Murder, you don't get lashes. Like riding his horse on Shabbat. It's a rabbinical decree, but they would get lashes for it. Or like consummating the marriage publicly. That would, okay? Those are the two cases that are mentioned in the Talmud that deserve lashes, and this is the third. So he was sentenced to lashes for a transgression. He's a sinner. In other words, it doesn't matter whether we accept this code right now or not, but we have to put these. Let's just have for a second. So he is a sinner who is brought to court, and when they take off his shirt, they say, wait a second. He's a really righteous man. Why? Because he doesn't shave his armpits. Let him go. He's one of us. He's like a holy man. So what does it teach us about the practice of...
Shave your armpits.
Yeah, but how...
Preferential treatment.
No. Yeah. It was the marker of who's religious and who's
You're not
not.
supposed to, so why would he have them shaved?
So it means that it was widespread. The practice was widespread. To see a person who didn't do that, wow, this is amazing. He's a really orthodox guy. Just for even though he has this other sin under his belt that he deserves lashes for, but the fact that he was so strong as to not shave his armpits means that he's really, an orthodox guy.
So everybody was doing this, and they were getting everybody in trouble for it?
No, so apparently they didn't really, even though they say Hayav Malkot, they couldn't really administer lashes to everyone who shaved himself. Because it would be impossible if it's so widespread that this is like the one righteous man in Sodom, right? Mm-hmm. Oh, here's the one guy who doesn't do that. So you can go around and give lashes to 99% of the people. But what it tells us is that everybody did that. Now, question is, why did everybody do it? It's the same.
Priests were doing it.
Not only the priests, everybody was doing it.
So that's what the Hellenists did, the Greeks did.
Same thing, right? Like we said in the first class, it's all Greek, right? It all comes from the Greek. There you go. And there you go again.
It's funny every time.
Yeah, it is. Because it's amazing how, when you realize how deeply the rabbis were influenced by the Greek, not either they deal with it, affected by it, or they deal with people who are affected by it.
It's sort of like kids with their parents. Like you said in a couple classes ago, it's like either kids are rebelling against their parents or they're
trying to emulate.
They're trying to emulate them, but they're very influenced.
Right. You cannot detach it. This is your culture. This is where you live. Just like you said about me being Israeli, so a Thai, right? It's different standards wherever you live. You bring a culture with you. So now I understand the complaint when the Korah comes and complains. They shaved me completely. it's not Korah complaining about Moshe. It's the rabbis complaining about the Kohanim. I know it's twisted logic, but all the pieces fall into place. I think this is a brilliant example of how the rabbis were able to use their platform and the Midrash, they take the Psukim to build that. So the equation is this: Korah versus Moshe and Aaron, etc., and the whole family is really the rabbis or the Hachamim against the Kohanim. So what do we have? The Kohanim shave, right? So this is what Korah is complaining about. Why are you doing that? And this is what the rabbis are complaining about the Kohanim of the time. You're Hellenizers. You all do that. This is complaint number one.
But if
Yeah.
the rabbis are Korah is symbolically the rabbis, then the rabbis are casting themselves as the bad guy, the person
Yes, so
who's
they
saying
could
what isn't true.
Right. So that I said that they
So
did that for protection. For protection. So if the Kohanim would hear them, he says, "No, of course we don't agree with Korah." So there are people they say, "Yes, we do," but to the Kohanim, "No, we don't." It's a double play, and that shows you how intricate the Midrash is. Because this is, I really had to work to find all the pieces together. But really, it works so nice that I said we have to look at it and see how powerful a tool it is. Because eventually they did succeed with their coup d'état, and who became.
We practice rabbinic Judaism.
We are practicing rabbinic Judaism, right?
Temple Judaism.
Yes, it's not Temple Judaism. I don't know that we would have wanted to choose Temple Judaism over rabbinic Judaism, but definitely they won this debate. So turn to the first source on page 26, and there's another Mishnaic source, and it speaks about the Kohen Gadol, the high priest on Yom Kippur. And if you recall from the Seder Avodah, from the prayers of Yom Kippur, the Kohen Gadol had to go through a process of changing his clothes several times. He had the golden garments and the white garments. And whenever he went into the inner sanctuary, he would wear pure white garments. And the rest of the day, he would wear on top of them the golden components of his regalia. So, בשחר היה לובש פלוסין של 12 מנה, בין הערביים הינדויין של 800 זוז. In the morning he would wear a 1200 dinari Egyptian cotton robe.
That's how much it cost?
Yeah, it's pretty expensive. And בין הערביים הינדויין, it's not cotton, it's wool, fine wool. My mistake here. Ben Arbaim Hinduin is from Hindu. It's from India.
Why is this Egyptian?
Oh, that's what they call the Egyptian wool. But I think it's a Greek word actually. Fellows. Ben Arbaim Hinduin Shmonem. So the Kohen Gadol wears very fine garments. אמרו עליו על רבי ישמעאל בן פיאבי שעשתה לו עמו כתונת של 100 מנה. About Rabbi Ishmael ben Piavi, it is told that his mother made him a 10,000 dinari robe. This is 10 times the going rate of the average high priest. So even the average high priest already makes for himself, and he doesn't have to do that, by the way. He could have the temple's treasury do it for him. He does his own to show his prowess. So on one hand they take money, not those people specifically. Some Kohanim Gedolim were using, in the language of Midrash, lemaha davar domeh, right? It's to what is this analogous? To the fact that the Queen of England doesn't get salary from the. I think is she paid?
Nope.
She's not paid. Wow, isn't it beautiful? Right? But she lives in a palace packed with artifacts that were stolen from her subjects for thousands of years.
She just started paying taxes, though, I think in 1992 or something like that.
Yeah.
That was like a concession.
Right.
People were pissed off.
Yeah. Right? What is this? Or the Vatican? Right? So the fact that if the Pope would have said, I'm going to buy my own shoes. Yeah. But who pays for the rest of your expenses? Right? It's people. So anyway, they say we're going to buy our own robes. 800, 1,200, 10,000 dinar. It's a lot of money. And it's a one-time use because then they would give it to the people. Or they sell it on eBay. But about Rabbi Elazar ben Harsom, it is told that his mother made him a 20,000 dinar robe. So they're upping the game. Each one is trying to look better than the other. But his brothers, the priests, did not let him wear it because he seemed to be naked. It was so fine, it was so transparent that it was the emperor's new clothes, basically. So what is going on here?
Showing off.
It's again Hellenistic culture. A lot of emphasis on the body, and maybe deliberately they did it to show the body, the contours of the whatever it is, and the rabbis were upset and said, "You're turning the temple into a runway, right? It's a fashion show."
Catwalk.
Yeah. So, but the interesting thing is that the same argument that we have from Korah about Moshe, he took his brother Aaron and he dressed him up like a bride and they put him in the tent of gathering. This is the same argument that the rabbis have about the priests of their time. They are dressing with such garments that are embarrassing, that we don't even want to let them wear. So, argument number 2 against the Kohanim. I had problems with argument number 3, which is, so we know that Korah complains about being shaved, and we know that the Hellenizers shaved. We know that Korah complains about dressing in fancy clothes, and we know that the Hellenizer did that. But what about the third element of lifting him up in the air? This was a little. So I think you could look at it symbolically as. Okay, I'm giving it to you. What do you think? What does it symbolize? That he lifts him up in the air? Because that we said that according to the Torah, probably there was just a symbolic dedication, but in the mouth of Korah complaining about Moshe, it becomes a physical lifting up, and Korah is not happy with that. So I have to assume that the Kohanim did something that has to do with lifting up someone in the air, and the rabbis were not happy with that. What was this lifting up in the air that the Kohanim did? Right. So shaving. So we found what shaving is dressing up, and now what is the lifting? I was going to mock myself that I could write it with a Y, and I did. Lift.
I was going to say, does it have anything to do with showing underneath the breeches, the way that the Leviim are supposed to be careful and have sort of modesty? And
modesty could be, right, that is one is being exposed when he's lifted up. So,
Something to do with the sacrifice?
what? The sacrifice being lifted up?
I have no idea.
Okay. It has to do, like the others, with Greek culture. So I mean, I work with that logic. If shaving was widespread in Greek culture, and wearing wearing fineries was also common to that culture, so maybe lifting up also had to do with that culture. So,
Because of strength.
strength,
Weight training.
Yeah.
weight training, strength. Right.
They look at the Greeks compared to the Jews, right?
Yeah, no, but the Jews at the time were strong enough. Don't think they were not weaklings.
Yeah, but
The Jews of today, people
Smart
think
and
we got this image of Hollywood of the of the Shvach of the Nebush. Yeah, definitely you can't sit in the Israeli army. My thought was maybe it has to do with wrestling, because we have a branch of sport called Greek wrestling. So I thought I'll find out what are the rules of Greek wrestling. Greco-Roman, right. Greco-Roman. So whatever the rules are today, nobody knows what the rules exactly were in the past. So I was looking for something that would tell me maybe that was. So the truth is, I think that in different types of wrestling or fighting, lifting up your opponent is considered a victory. And it would make sense why it would be considered a victory, especially if you throw him afterwards to the ground.
I think that's like a WWE thing.
Yeah, is it? Okay.
They lift people up and they drop them down and they like boing and you're just like, what are they doing to each other?
And it's all scripted anyway. Yeah. And then I found two sources for that. One was Midrashic and one was Greek. And I don't remember which one came first. The Midrashic one is a strange story. It's about one of the rabbis, Rabbi Shimon ben Shatta, who's told by his congregants that there are witches in Ashkelon, and which was a mixed city of Greek and Jewish population, and they are casting spells on people, and we have to get rid of them. And so what he did was he took young men and brought them in. He brought them into this long-winded story, but basically he brought them into the cave and presented them as boyfriends for those witches. And they were so excited, and then when they lifted the witches off the ground, they lost their powers, and then they killed them. So
the witches had to be lifted up to lose their powers?
Yes. So I thought that
there goes the riding the broom thing.
Seriously, what kind of weird
different witches.
power is that?
Yeah, and what about throwing water on the witch? Yeah, which by the way is Talmudic.
It is?
Yes, the Wizard of Oz. Yeah. This part, yeah, it's Talmudic. That it says water undo spells.
Undoes spells?
Yeah, water undoes. Right. I'm sorry, it's Hebrew. Water is plural in Hebrew.
Yeah.
Yeah. So anyway, so after I recall this story, I remember that this in Greek mythology, one of the tasks of Hercules was to fight a giant called Antaeus, and as much as he threw him to the ground, Antaeus just got stronger and stronger. And then Hercules realized that since Antaeus' mother is Gaia or Gaia, what would she be? Earth. Every time he pushes him to the ground, he becomes stronger because
Mom's
right?
pushing him up.
Yeah, it's like a power pad. It's being recharged. So
He had to hold him up.
he had to hold him up. So I thought that I'm putting 1, 2, 3 together. I said probably in Greek wrestling the rule was that when you pick up your opponent, you win. You don't have to throw him to the ground. You have to pick him up in there. And I think I found an image on one of those M4s, whatever it is, that you could actually see that someone is being lifted in the air. So with that, the last piece of the puzzle fell into place. Korah, the brilliant story that the rabbis present, like here's Moshe going from 10 to 10, and look at what Moshe did. Now, here they're not so afraid because it was a one-time thing at the time of the dedication of the Levim, that they had to shave and they had to be lifted practically or symbolically. But when the rabbis say, this is what Korah said, look at them, they shave their body. At a certain point, you don't know who they are, right? It's just they. It was vague they. And look at them, they shave their body, they dress up like with these clothes, and they lift each other in the air, in the gym while they practice this Greek wrestling. And everybody now identifies with the rabbis, and they realize that this Korah is just the straw man or the facade for attacking the priests. Now, the last source that we're going to look at in relation to Korah is this. Remember the Mishnah that we read before about the hides being stored in the special room, and then they take it by force. So skip to the second line of that source on the bottom of page 26. Alehem ve'al kayotze b'hem abar Abba Shaul ben Botnit mishum Abba Yosef ben Hanin. About them and others like them, Abba Shaul said in the name of Abba Yosef ben Hanin. There was a phrase that he made up, and he says this: Oili mi bet baitos, oili mi alatan, oili mi bet Hanin, oili mi hishatan, oili mi bet katros, oili mi kolmusan, oili mi bet Ishmael ben Piavi, oili me'agorfan. It sounds like a poem or something. Maybe it was sung in the streets by children. I don't know. Shehem kohanim gedolim, uvneim gizbarim, v'chataneim amarkalim, v'avadihen chovtin et ha'am b'maklot. Anyone wants to read the English of that? Woe to me.
Sure. Woe to me, the house of
Voices.
Woe to me of their club. Woe to me, the house of Hanin. Woe to me, their whisper. Woe to me, the house of Kasros. Woe to me of their quill. Woe to me of the house of Ismael ben Piavi. Woe to me of their fist. They are high priests, their sons are treasurers, their sons-in-law are administrators, and their servants beat people with clubs. That's a weird kids thing to sing in the street.
So maybe not kids, rebels. I don't know. Right, you're right. Yeah.
Although London
The
Bridge
rebels.
is
Yeah,
pretty
teenagers.
bizarre as well.
Teenagers.
Okay.
There's a feeling here that the priesthood has infiltrated all of these. The corruption is.
Yes, the corruption is everywhere. So there are 4 families of Kohanim. And if you confront them, they're either going to use the club, or whisper, which is gossip, or the quill, which is a letter, official letter of complaint to the government, or their fist. They're like the gentle mafiosos and the more aggressive mafiosos, in other words. And it says their high priests, their sons treasurers, meaning basically it's nepotism, right? They share everything, and you can't complain. So and so that was maybe one brave rabbi who was willing to say it, but not everybody was willing to say it. But that takes us back to the end of page 23, to the end of the story of Aaron and Moshe taking the food from the almanah, and they say, "Is this a way to behave?" The poor woman. They all act in that manner and say, "It is God's will." So this refers to the Kohanim. And if you go to the next page, after Korah complains about Moshe, what do the people say in the last paragraph? They said, Moshe is king, his brother Aaron is high priest, his sons are deputy priest, and everything goes, it's the same, it's a reflection of the same poem that they said about the Kohanim. So now, when you put it all together, you realize, I think it's pretty clear that this is what was going on. But the beauty of it is that if you really only look at one written source, it's hard to see it. The questions are there. The questions for me were lingering, so I kept digging for more and more and more information. And then when one piece said, I said, "Wow, this is brilliant." So it tells us a couple of things. First of all, not to be quick to reject the Midrash as, "Oh, this is silly, this is superficial, it doesn't make sense." Second, that we have to do this research and analysis, and definitely we give credit to the rabbis that were able to use. It also teaches us the power of the word, because eventually they were able to change things.
But yeah,
So it inspires us to,
I hope that the Romans knocked down the temple.
Yes.
the Kohanim in a different light, because we have this light of like the Kohanim are
Oh, yes.
so great and they're perfect. And
Any
it's
Kohen here? I don't want to
no,
offend
they're
any
not.
Kohen. Okay.
Well, that
All
was-
power is corruptible.
All right. Power corrupts, and this is we could say the ideal system of the Torah is to have really a complete separation of church and state. The Kohanim were not supposed to intervene in the and we're not supposed to have financial power. They were supposed to depend on the funds of the on the generosity of the people.
And the relationship to these Greek elements
Yes.
is to say, is the rabbi's polemic against the influence of Greek culture in research
Yes.
and society at large.
Yes, and we have on one hand from rabbinic literature itself clear proof that Hellenism was widespread, and on the other hand we have this mirror imagery of they're using it against the Kohanim. So we'll stop here.